First contact gone wrong. The Galactic Archives would later mark this as the day everything changed, though not in the way anyone expected. Senior Ambassador Caxel of the Unified Systems stood before the Council of Elders. His iridescent scales dulled with concern as he delivered his report. "The humans have discovered the quantum barrier," he announced to the assembled representatives of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. "Our containment protocol has failed." The chamber, carved from living crystal that pulsed with the collective thoughts of its occupants, darkened perceptibly. For 10,000 years, the Council had maintained the barrier, an artificial wall in space-time that kept humanity trapped within their solar system, unable to detect the true vastness of galactic civilization that surrounded them. "Impossible," declared Elder Venerx, her crystalline form vibrating with disbelief. The calculations were perfect. They should have remained blind to quantum mechanics for at least another millennium. Caxel projected a hologram showing the latest data from Earth. They've not only discovered quantum entanglement, they've weaponized it. Their first practical application wasn't communication or transportation. It was a detector that revealed our barrier. The council chamber erupted in murmurs. Humanity's pattern of technological development had always worried them. Where other species developed space travel after achieving global peace, humans reached for the stars while still divided. Where others saw technology as a path to enlightenment, humans consistently turned their discoveries toward defensive and offensive capabilities first. "We must address them directly," said Elder Venerx. "The containment protocol is no longer viable, perhaps if we explain our intentions." "With respect," Elder Caxel interrupted, "they already know. They detected our quantum signatures 3 Earth years ago. They've been watching us watch them." The chamber fell silent. Elder Venerx's crystalline form pulsed with deep red light, a sign of extreme agitation among her kind. "They knew, and said nothing." "More than that," Caxel continued, manipulating the hologram. "They've been feeding us false data. The primitive fusion drives we've been monitoring. Decoys. The basic orbital habitats. Facades. They've built something far more sophisticated beneath the surface of their moon, and we never detected it." A hologram shifted to show a massive complex hidden within the lunar regolith. Quantum signatures suggested technology far beyond what the Council believed humans capable of achieving. Most disturbing were the energy readings, weapons platforms, shield generators, and propulsion systems that rivaled or exceeded Unified Systems capabilities. "How?" demanded another elder. "How did they advance so quickly without detection?" "Because we underestimated them," Caxel said simply. "We assumed their fractious nature would slow their progress. Instead, it drove them to innovate faster. Their competing nations and corporations created a technological arms race we didn't account for. But most importantly," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "they never trusted the silence of space." "Explain," Elder Venerx commanded. "Humans have a concept they call paranoia, a tendency to suspect hidden dangers even in apparent safety. Their entire species exhibits this trait to varying degrees. When they detected no signs of alien life despite their improving technology, they didn't assume they were alone. They assumed they were being watched." The hologram changed again, showing intercepted communications from Earth's various space agencies and military commands. "They developed 2 parallel space programs, the public one we monitored, and a secret one based on the assumption that advanced alien civilizations existed and might not be friendly. Every peaceful technology they developed had a military application researched in parallel. Every scientific breakthrough was examined for its defensive potential. And now?" Elder Venerx asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "Now they're requesting a meeting with the full council." Their message was, Caxel shifted uncomfortably, direct. "They demand an explanation for the quantum barrier and our surveillance. They've made it clear they're prepared for any response, diplomatic or otherwise." "Threats?" Another elder's crystalline form flashed with indignation. "They dare threaten the council." "No," Caxel corrected. Not threats. Warnings. Their exact words were, "We come in peace, but we come prepared for war. The choice is yours." Elder Venrix rose, her crystalline form towering over the chamber. "Then we have no choice. Send word to Earth. The Council will meet with their representatives. And," she paused, her form dimming slightly, "prepare our defense fleets. If we've truly misjudged humanity this badly, we must be ready for any possibility." Equals. As the Council chamber emptied, Caxel remained, studying the hologram of Earth's hidden lunar base. He couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had revealed exactly what they wanted the Council to see, no more, no less. For a species that had spent years concealing their true capabilities, this sudden disclosure felt too precise, too calculated. The humans had a saying he'd encountered in his studies: "Keep your friends close and your enemies closer." Caxel wondered which category the Council fell into from humanity's perspective. More importantly, he wondered if they'd already made that decision long ago, during those silent years behind the quantum barrier, preparing for this very moment. The game of galactic politics was about to change, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the Council wasn't the only one making the rules. The silent preparation. Deep beneath the Olympus Mons on Mars, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Director Sarah Chen stood before a holographic display of the solar system. Red dots indicated the positions of the quantum barrier generators they'd detected. Blue markers showed Earth's hidden defense grid, a network that had taken 50 years to build in absolute secrecy. "Status report," she commanded, her voice echoing in the cavernous command center carved from Martian bedrock. Colonel James Rodriguez stepped forward, his uniform bearing no insignia or national markings. Like everyone in the Sentinel program, he served humanity as a whole, not any single nation. "The Council took the bait," he reported. "They're scrambling their defense fleets exactly as predicted. Our quantum sensors detect massive energy signatures throughout the Orion Arm." Sarah nodded, studying the tactical display. "And our assets. Ghost Fleet remains undetected. The decoy bases on Luna are drawing all their attention, just as planned. Strike groups are in position throughout the Kuiper Belt, and the Titan shipyards are ready to launch under command." The Titan shipyards were humanity's greatest secret, vast manufacturing complexes hidden beneath the moon's hydrocarbon seas, protected from detection by the very compounds that made Titan's atmosphere opaque to most scanning technologies. There, the true extent of human military capability had been quietly growing for decades. "Dr. Harrison," Sarah called. "Update on the barrier analysis." Dr. Maya Harrison, lead scientist of the Quantum Defense Initiative, manipulated her own set of holographic controls. "We've mapped 97% of their network. The technology is impressive, but fundamentally flawed. They never conceived that someone might approach quantum mechanics from a different theoretical framework. That had been humanity's greatest advantage. While alien civilizations had developed quantum technology through peaceful exploration, humans had discovered it while searching for better weapons. The divergent approach had led to breakthroughs the Council never anticipated. "The Council's meeting request has arrived," Rodriguez announced. "They're suggesting neutral territory, their station at Proxima Centauri." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. How considerate of them to choose a location where we've already positioned our stealth observers. "Accept the invitation. Prepare the diplomatic team." She paused, turning to face her senior staff, "and activate Operation Looking Glass." Throughout the solar system, hidden quantum transmitters powered up, establishing a secondary detection grid that could track Council ships through their own barrier technology. It was the product of 30 years of reverse engineering, achieved by studying the very barrier meant to contain Earth. "Director," Dr. Harrison interjected, "there's something else you should see." She expanded a section of the sensor display, highlighting an anomalous reading. "We're detecting quantum signatures that don't match Council technology. Someone else is watching." Sarah studied the data, her expression hardening. The Council isn't as unified as they pretend to be. Interesting. She turned to Rodriguez. Adjust the Ghost Fleet's deployment. I want eyes on every quantum signature we detect, Council or otherwise. What about the diplomatic mission? Rodriguez asked. Proceed as planned. Ambassador Torres knows her role. Sarah's gaze returned to the tactical display, watching as new signatures appeared. More Council ships moving into position. They still think this is about the barrier. Let them keep thinking that. The truth was far more complex. Humanity hadn't just been preparing for first contact, they'd been preparing for what came after. The quantum barrier had merely confirmed what they'd long suspected, that advanced civilizations might view Earth as a potential threat to be contained. Dr. Harrison, Sarah said, initiate Phase 2 of the Quantum Communications Array. It's time to show the Council that barriers work both ways. Throughout the solar system, hidden transmitters activated, creating a quantum network that could pierce the Council's barrier technology. But instead of breaking through, it used the barrier itself as a conduit, turning the Council's containment measure into humanity's greatest intelligence asset. Signal confirmed, Harrison reported. We're receiving data through their own network. Their encryption is elementary compared to what we developed in isolation. Sarah allowed herself another small smile. The Council's greatest mistake hadn't been containing humanity. It had been giving them time to develop on their own. Forced to innovate without any knowledge of galactic standard technology, they'd reinvented everything from first principles, often finding solutions that the galaxy's unified development had missed. Begin data extraction, she ordered. I want to know everything. Fleet positions, technology bases, political structures. Most importantly, I want to know who else is watching. The Council may have built this cage, but they're not the only ones interested in its contents. As her staff carried out their orders, Sarah moved to the facility's observation dome. Through layers of quantum-enhanced transparent aluminum, she could see the Martian sunset painting the sky in shades of red. Somewhere out there, the Council's ships were moving into position, preparing for a confrontation they thought they understood. They had no idea they were following a script written decades ago, their every reaction predicted and planned for by a species they'd gravely underestimated. The quantum barrier hadn't contained humanity. It had incubated them, creating exactly the kind of civilization the Council had hoped to prevent. And now the incubation was over. The deception unveiled. The diplomatic station at Proxima Centauri was a marvel of alien engineering. A massive structure of crystalline spires and quantum-stabilized gravity wells. Ambassador Elena Torres stood at its observation deck, appearing to admire the view while her quantum-enhanced neural implants scanned everything in sight. Behind her, First Speaker Ixtel of the Council approached, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns meant to convey peaceful intentions. Ambassador Torres, welcome to Harmony Station. Elena turned, offering the precise degree of bow that her briefings had indicated would be respectful without suggesting submission. First Speaker, thank you for hosting us. Her neural implants recorded every subtle shift in the alien's quantum field, data streaming back to Mars Command through the Council's own barrier network. We must admit, Ixtel said, your species has surprised us. Your advancement was unexpected. Survival often requires adaptation, Elena replied carefully, especially when one discovers they're being contained. The First Speaker's crystalline form flickered, a sign of discomfort. The barrier was meant to protect, not imprison. Your species' development pattern concerned us. Because we developed quantum technology through military research rather than peaceful exploration. Elena allowed a small smile. Or because we developed it differently than you expected. Before Ixtel could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. A junior council member rushed in, their crystalline form pulsing with urgent patterns. First Speaker, we've detected anomalous quantum signatures throughout the barrier network. Something is. The station's lights flickered, and every display screen filled with the same image, a simple human handprint. Through her neural link, Elena received the confirmation she'd been waiting for. Operation Looking Glass was complete. "What you're detecting," she said calmly, "is the activation of our quantum override protocols. As we speak, your barrier network is being reprogrammed. Not to break it, you understand, but to give us equal access." Ixtel's form shifted to a deep red. "Impossible. The network's security was designed to prevent brute force attacks," Elena interrupted. "But you never considered that we might simply ask the barrier what it was made of." "Quantum systems want to be entangled," first speaker. "They're like children eager to share secrets, if you know how to listen." Throughout the station, more alarms sounded as the Council's control over their own technology began to slip away. Elena's neural implants registered mounting chaos throughout the quantum network as human algorithms rewrote 10,000 years of alien protocols. "What do you want?" Ixtel demanded, their form now pulsing with patterns of barely contained panic. Elena's expression remained diplomatic, but her eyes hardened. "First, you should know that this station is currently surrounded by 30 human warships that have been here for months. Your sensors can't detect them because they're using your own quantum fields as camouflage. A technique, I might add, that we developed by studying your barrier." She gestured to the window, where space itself seemed to ripple as the Ghost Fleet dropped their quantum veils. Massive ships of dark metal appeared, their designs unlike anything the Council had ever encountered. They weren't the sleek, crystalline vessels favored by galactic civilization, but rather angular, pragmatic machines built for a single purpose. "Second," Elena continued, "you should know that we've been reading your quantum communications for years. We know about the dissolution movement within the Council. We know about the Rim world's secret militarization. And we know about the fragment. The species that came before you, the ones who actually built the barrier network." Ixtel's form went completely still, the crystalline equivalent of shocked silence. "But most importantly," Elena said, walking closer to the first speaker, "you should know that humanity doesn't want war. We never did. All this," she gestured to the Ghost Fleet outside, "was just insurance, a guarantee that when we finally had this conversation, you would listen." Through her neural link, Elena received another update. Across the galaxy, human quantum processors were finishing their work. The barrier network hadn't been destroyed. It had been transformed into something new, a system that could no longer be controlled by any single species. "So," Elena said, "shall we discuss the real reason we're here? Not the barrier, not your attempts to contain us, but the threat you've been preparing for. The reason you built the barrier network in the first place." She paused, letting her words sink in. "The fragment is returning, isn't it? And you need our help to stop them." Outside the station window, more human ships emerged from quantum veils. Not warships this time, but massive research vessels and engineering platforms. The tools not of war, but of collaboration. "How?" Ixtel's form flickered with confusion. "How did you know?" Elena smiled, but there was no triumph in it, only determination. "Because, first speaker, when you locked us in our solar system, you gave us nothing to do but think. And humans are very, very good at solving puzzles when we put our minds to it. The future of the galaxy hung in the balance as human and alien faced each other in the quantum-lit chamber. The barrier had been meant to contain humanity, but instead it had created exactly what the galaxy needed, a species ready to face the darkness between the stars. The counterstrike. The Titan Command Center hummed with activity as holographic displays showed the fragment's first incursion into Council space. Director Chen watched as ancient quantum signatures, far more powerful than anything the Council had developed, tore holes in reality itself. "They're exactly what we predicted," Dr. Harrison announced, analyzing the data streams. "The fragment isn't just a precursor species, they're quantum beings. They don't build ships, they transform space itself into weapons." Through quantum-linked displays, they watched as crystalline council ships shattered against the fragment's reality-warping attacks. Entire defense fleets disappeared into spatial anomalies, their quantum signatures snuffed out like candles in a storm. "Show me the simulation again," Sarah commanded. The central hologram shifted, displaying the theoretical model humanity had developed during their years of isolation. It showed the fragment for what they truly were, beings that had evolved beyond physical form, existing as patterns in the quantum fabric of space-time itself. "Council ships approaching Luna," Rodriguez reported. "They're requesting emergency docking clearance. Survivors from the Proxima attack." Sarah nodded. "Granted," and launched the QEM platforms. Throughout the solar system, hidden installations activated. Quantum entanglement manipulation platforms, humanity's answer to beings that existed as quantum patterns. Where the Council had tried to fight the fragment with conventional weapons, humanity had spent decades preparing to fight them on their own terms. "Ambassador Torres is online," a communications officer announced. Elena's hologram appeared, her expression grim. "The Council has formally requested our help. They're evacuating their core worlds. The fragment's invasion is moving faster than even their worst-case scenarios predicted, because they never understood what they were really containing," Sarah replied. "The barrier network wasn't built to keep us in. It was built to keep them out. The fragment had been trying to re-enter our universe for millennia." Director, Dr. Harrison interrupted. "QEM platforms are in position. The fragment will reach Sol in approximately 48 hours. Sarah turned to the tactical display, watching as humanity's true defense grid activated. Not the decoy platforms they'd revealed to the Council, but something far more sophisticated. Thousands of quantum processors linked together, creating a web of controlled reality distortions throughout the solar system. "Begin Phase 1, she ordered. "Show me what our friends from beyond space-time make of human ingenuity." The QEM platforms powered up, their effects rippling through space like waves in a pond. Where the fragment's quantum patterns touched these waves, they began to change, not being destroyed or blocked, but transformed, forced to interact with reality in ways they hadn't intended. "It's working," Dr. Harrison reported excitedly. "The fragment's quantum signatures are being pulled into our reality framework. They're being forced to manifest physically." Through the quantum network, reports flooded in from Council observers. Where before they had faced invisible, untouchable enemies, now they could see the fragment taking shape. Massive crystalline structures that twisted in impossible ways, but structures that could be fought. "Send the orders to Ghost Fleet," Sarah commanded. "All ships, execute attack pattern Omega. Let's show our new allies how humanity fights." The Ghost Fleet moved with precision that surprised even the Council observers. Each ship carried weapons designed specifically for this moment. Quantum disruptors that could target the fragment's newly materialized forms, reality anchors that prevented them from shifting back to their natural state. Multiple fragment entities materializing throughout the system, Rodriguez reported. Ghost Fleet engaging. Direct hits confirmed. Their physical forms are vulnerable to our weapons. But the fragment weren't defenseless. Even forced into physical form, they wielded power that dwarfed anything the Council had seen. Solar flares erupted at their command, spatial distortions twisted ships into impossible shapes, and quantum storms threatened to tear reality apart. "They're adapting," Dr. Harrison warned. "The QEM effect won't hold them forever." "It doesn't need to," Sarah replied. "Initiate Phase 2. Throughout the solar system, a second network activated, one that had been hidden even from the Council's recent observations. Quantum processors that had been running for decades, solving a single problem: how to communicate with beings that existed as quantum patterns. "Broadcasting now," Dr. Harrison announced, sending the message through all quantum frequencies. The message was simple: mathematical proofs encoded in quantum states, demonstrating understanding of the fragment's nature. Not an attack or a defense, but an attempt at communication. It was humanity's real secret weapon, not the ability to fight the fragment, but the ability to understand them. "They're responding," Dr. Harrison said, her voice filled with wonder. "The quantum patterns, they're changing, becoming more ordered." Through the quantum network, Sarah watched as the battle throughout the solar system slowly ceased. The fragments' physical forms didn't disappear, but their attacks stopped as they processed humanity's message. "What did you send them?" Elena's hologram asked. Sarah smiled. "We sent them proof that we understand what they are, and an invitation to evolve together, rather than fight. After all, that's what the barrier network really was. Not a weapon, but a cradle for new quantum-capable species." The fragment's response came not in words or images, but in pure mathematical concepts that flowed through the quantum network. Dr. Harrison's translation software worked frantically to interpret them. "They're accepting," she announced finally. "They recognize us as equals, as beings capable of transcending physical reality, just as they did." Sarah nodded, watching as the fragment's physical manifestations began to change, taking forms that could interact with conventional matter without destroying it. "That's why the Council's containment failed. They tried to prevent us from developing into something dangerous, but in doing so, they forced us to develop into something necessary. The future of the galaxy was changing, not through war but through understanding. Humanity had proved itself not just capable of fighting the fragment, but of bridging the gap between physical and quantum existence, a capability that would reshape civilization itself. A new order. 1 year after first contact with the fragment, the Galactic Council chamber had changed. Where once crystalline beings sat in rigid hierarchies, now representatives of all species, physical and quantum alike, gathered in a space that shifted between states of matter as easily as humans changed clothes. Elena Torres, now serving as humanity's permanent representative, stood at the center of the chamber. Behind her, a fragment entity shimmered in quantum states, its presence translated into visible patterns by human technology. Beside her, first speaker Ixtel's crystalline form glowed with patterns that would have been impossible a year ago. "The integration continues to exceed expectations," Elena reported to the assembled representatives. "The quantum translation network has allowed physical and non-physical species to communicate directly for the first time in galactic history." The network had been humanity's greatest contribution. Not weapons or defenses, but the ability to bridge realities. What had started as a way to communicate with the fragment had evolved into something far more profound. A means for all species to truly understand each other. "Yet questions remain," Ixtel said, their form shifting with uncertainty. "The barrier network, your species knew its true purpose all along." "We suspected," Elena replied. "When we first detected it, our scientists noticed something odd. It wasn't just containing us, it was teaching us. Every attempt to study it led to breakthroughs in quantum mechanics. It was like having a physics professor who never spoke, but left fascinating puzzles everywhere." Through the quantum network, the fragment entity pulsed with what the translation software interpreted as amusement. Its thoughts filtered through the network. The barrier was our gift to emerging species. A challenge to overcome, a puzzle to solve. Those who could break it would be ready to join us. "But the Council misunderstood," Elena continued. "They saw the barrier as a containment system, not realizing they were meant to solve it too. They became its custodians rather than its students." The chamber filled with ripples of understanding from both physical and quantum species. The Council's 10,000 years of peace hadn't been wrong, exactly, but it had been incomplete. In trying to prevent conflict, they had also prevented growth. "Director Chen's report," Elena said, activating a holographic display. "The first joint human fragment research facility on Titan has successfully achieved controlled reality shifting. Physical species can now temporarily experience quantum existence, while quantum beings can manifest physically without strain." The implications were enormous. Physical species could explore the quantum realm safely, while the fragment and their kind could interact with the physical world without causing destruction. The barrier between realities was becoming permeable, controlled not by restriction but by understanding. "And what of the future?" asked the council member. "How do we prevent this power from being misused?" Elena smiled. "The same way humanity developed it, through cooperation and transparency. Our quantum network doesn't just allow communication, it creates understanding. It's hard to fear or hate someone when you can literally experience existence from their perspective." The fragment entity shifted, its patterns forming complex geometries that the translation software rendered as speech. "We withdrew from physical space eons ago because we thought transcendence meant leaving matter behind. Humanity showed us that true evolution means building bridges, not barriers." Throughout the chamber, representatives of both physical and quantum species signaled agreement. The old council's rigid hierarchy was giving way to something new, a genuine federation of all sapient life, regardless of form. "There will be challenges," Elena acknowledged. "Changes this fundamental don't come easily, but we've already overcome the greatest obstacle, the assumption that different means incompatible." As if to demonstrate her point, the fragment entity shifted part of itself into physical form, something that would have been impossible a year ago, and extended a crystalline appendage to Elena in what it had learned was a human gesture of agreement. Elena shook it, her quantum-enhanced senses allowing her to perceive both its physical and quantum aspects simultaneously. "The barrier network remains," Ixtel observed, "but its purpose has changed." "Yes," Elena agreed, "from a wall to a gateway, from isolation to connection. After all," she smiled, "that's what humanity does best. We don't break barriers, we transform them into bridges." The chamber hummed with quantum energies as physical and non-physical beings continued their unprecedented cooperation. In orbit above them, ships of all species worked together, their crews learning to navigate between states of reality. Research stations probed the mysteries of existence itself, while trading vessels carried both physical goods and quantum data between stars. The galaxy had changed, not through war or dominance, but through understanding. Humanity had proven that the greatest power wasn't the ability to destroy or contain, but to connect and transform. The ancient fragment had transcended physical reality, but humanity had transcended something far more fundamental: the barriers between ways of being. And in doing so, they had helped create something unprecedented in the galaxy's long history. A civilization where different didn't mean separate, where evolution meant addition rather than replacement, and where the future was limited only by the imagination of all sapient beings working together. The new age had begun, and it belonged to everyone.